Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jenn Washington. This is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I would like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey, you guys, and welcome. On this episode of Woke by Accident podcast, I would like to talk about Kamala Harris. We also will talk about Breonna Taylor and protests that are planned for this weekend. Also, the Jacob Blake case. And we also want to pay tribute and salute to Chadwick Boseman. So let's get started. This first story comes from my neck of the woods in Missouri. A Missouri sports radio host, Nate Lucas, who hosted the Nate Lucas Show on Springfield's jock radio stations, was taken off the air after he allegedly made offensive comments about the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Senator Kamala Harris. The news later reported that a recording of a controversial statement made by Lucas was not available, but three people with knowledge of the incident stated that he used an offensive sexist slur to describe Harris on his show last Friday. Now, the operations manager, Tom Ladd, who hosted the show, informed listeners about Lucas's absence, but he did not go into details of why he would not be appearing. He cautioned listeners to allow time for the station to investigate. Now, speaking of Senator Kamala Harris, now we know that she is the first black woman to run for vice president on a major party ticket, but did we know there was another African American woman who ran for vice president? So there's a story in the New York Times and also coverage of this too with CNN. So Charlotta Bass was the first black woman to run for vice president in 1952. She ran on the Progressive Party ticket. She has the endorsement of civil rights greats such as Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois. Though she was unsuccessful, she ran alongside Vincent Hallinan, who was a San Francisco lawyer. He only garnered 140,000 votes, and they were unsuccessful against the Republicans, Dwight Eisenhower and Richard Nixon. So in spite of all of that, it's kind of an awesome exchange of events that we get to learn about this great Black History moment that I know I never learned in school, did you? Through Senator Kamala Harris making this historic move in history as the first black woman running on a major party ticket. I want everybody to Google Charlotta Bass when they get a chance. Her background was in journalism. She went from working for a newspaper called the California Eagle to owning that same newspaper. So that is pretty dope and inspiring. Jacob Blake pled not guilty Friday to 3 charges, including sexual assault, following an alleged incident in early May. Now, this incident allegedly occurred May 3rd in Kenosha, according to court documents. Accusations made by a female who stated that she came home that day and Blake sexually assaulted her. She declined to be seen by a forensic nurse. And the complaint also alleged that Blake stole her vehicle and debit card. Now, Blake appeared for court from his hospital bed. A pre-trial conference was set for October 21st, and a jury selection for this particular case is slated for November 9th. The proceedings lasted about 15 minutes and were conducted on Zoom. He is charged with third-degree sexual assault, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct. Now, you may not be familiar with the case of Jacob Blake. You may be saying, who is Jacob Blake? So, Jacob Blake is the African American man who, on August 23rd, was shot and seriously injured by a police officer, Rustin Shesky. Rustin Shesky shot Blake 7 times in the back during a arrest for a separate matter. 4 of the 7 shots hit Blake, and he is now paralyzed. Following the shooting on August 23rd, several protests and community outcry occurred in response to the police shooting of Jacob Blake, who is still currently in the hospital, as he did appear on the separate case. I'd like to move on to Breonna Taylor. Now, this story really just sends a chill up your spine and just really makes you question our justice system. So, Jamarcus Glover, who was an ex-boyfriend of Breonna Taylor, was offered a plea deal in July if he would name Breonna Taylor as a member of his alleged criminal gang, according to his attorney. The deal was one of several offered by prosecutors after Taylor's death. All carried a penalty of 10 years, and none were ultimately accepted. Now, Breonna Taylor was shot dead on March 13th by white Louisville Metro police officers who had broke into her apartment using a no-knock warrant. Her death has led to a nationwide protest against police brutality. And then the purpose of the raid at Taylor's home was to find evidence linking her to this ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, a convicted felon with a history of drug trafficking. Police did not find anything at Taylor's residence. Now it appears that prosecutors are attempting to tie Taylor to a life of crime after her death. A really interesting piece of the story that I think a lot of people are not aware of is that Jamarcus Glover was arrested on the same night that Breonna Taylor was killed in a separate raid at a separate residence of an alleged drug house about 10 miles away. And they did recover drugs there. So, according to NPR, this lengthy plea negotiation, which was offered to Glover, this deal that named Taylor as a member of his organized crime syndicate. Can we say this is pretty low? Even the attorneys for Breonna Taylor's family had to state that this shows how desperate that the other side is to justify the wrongful search of the Breonna Taylor's home and killing and the arrest of her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. And just think of how her family must feel. Her mother coming to the scene to learn about her death and given the runaround we learn and not getting confirmation on the scene, and then to go through all of this, still no charges, no justice, no accountability, not even an apology, and then to find that her daughter's name is being added to a plea deal as a co-conspirator or co-defendant posthumously. I mean, that's pretty bad. So this weekend will be filled with several marches and rallies in support of the Justice for Breonna Taylor and directly to protest the Kentucky Derby weekend that is scheduled for tomorrow. Several are gathered in Louisville, Kentucky. So today, Friday, marks the 100th day of protests over her shooting, right? That's a long time. They have taken to the street every day since May 28th. Let's stand with this group. Let's not support the Kentucky Derby. As cool as it is to wear hats and nice suits and all that, no justice for Breonna Taylor, no Kentucky Derby. For our last story, I did want to recognize the beautiful life of Chadwick Boseman, who we lost on August 28th, our once and future king, T'Challa, King of Wakanda. I mean, he meant so much to the culture. He will be greatly missed, but learning who he was as a person, it really makes me think about the expression giving a person their flowers while they can receive them and smell them. Although he was young, at 43, I feel like he got his flowers. The way that people received his art and his work, and he felt that love right back and he gave it back to the community. That is awesome, and that is what life is about. It is about giving back. I feel like it's a great lesson in that, and I know I'm inspired to do better. I try to give back as much as I can, and I'm a part of organizations that are all about giving back, but we can always do better, and I feel like he's a great example. So salute and rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude this episode. I would again like to thank you for listening to Woke by Accident, and we would also like to invite you to follow us on our social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast, and on Twitter, it is Woke by. Again, we are available on all the platforms for podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, share, like, tell a friend. We do appreciate the feedback and the support. And every time you listen, we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again and take care.